find you, always contemplating what to do in case happiness found you. Hey, come on, baby, follow me. I'm the firefighter. Follow me. I'm the firefighter. And I'll show you where it's at.
Welcome to the Meat and Potatoes podcast. We're with Ethic Collective today. Melissa Seavey is the CEO and founder, and Devin Matson is the COO, and they happen to be married. How does that work out?
It was kind of an evolution. I was working for a venture capital firm in Austin, and more or less living out of my van when we met, and so there was no intention to start a company. I was an entrepreneur in residence. I had my own idea. And then it just kind of never really took off. And meanwhile, Melissa had started the Ethic Collective, and was starting to get some orders in, and was thinking it was essentially a managed services company at the beginning. Like, there were a few large clients. She was doing a lot of their supply chain, and we kind of came up with the idea together to build it out as a platform. And so I joined in February of 2020, right? We all know what happened the following month. So
Right.
Job security was a good thing. So I stayed on.
Okay,
And it's all we've ever known, because we
There you
got
go.
married after starting it.
Yeah.
there you go.
So,
Courtship and a company.
yeah. And a pandemic.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I guess you could have adopted a puppy and
Yeah.
bought a house. Melissa, tell us what Ethic Collective is then.
So we are a platform for artisan groups that make handmade products to be able to connect with companies. And so we source ethical handmade, primarily from the developing world or from underserved communities, and provide a bridge for them to be able to have large customers that buy in bulk. So there's several marketplaces online where you can buy cool handmade artisan products. But those are typically B2C, and we're strictly B2B. And so we're just doing large orders. Kind of we do smaller orders for events of 100, but kind of our typical order is around 10,000 units of something handmade. So
Oh, wow.
we're often working with hundreds of artisans at a time. And we've just found that this model is both a more sustainable model, and I've kind of been iterating on this for over a decade.
Yeah.
And a lot of models that didn't work on the sustainability side, as well as this is better for the artisans, that they can have several months of consistent work making one item. And through that model, we're able to keep prices reasonable. So handmade is typically low quantity, high cost,
Yeah.
and we kind of reverse that we're able to do them at a reasonable cost, but still fair pay to the artisans. So we're really able to accomplish what our ultimate mission is, and that is be able to provide people a pathway out of poverty through consistent fair pay work.
Very cool. Yeah, I've seen a lot of other models over the years, but that's a big number, 10,000 orders. And so a company might buy those as gifts for their employees or customers, other vendors. Is that usually what they're buying those for? Or what is the purpose?
That's one arena, and that's something that we're really ramping up through the end of the year, is like holiday gifting with purpose, so and story, so people can see a picture of the artisan that made it and their story, and then we brand it for the company. And so we tell people they don't have to donate anything, but are still getting the impact of a donation, and yet people get a cool product with it.
Yeah.
But probably what really is where we do most of our business is becoming a product in a company's line. And so we're bringing a handmade product into their line, and then we do all the logistics, the international logistics and the storytelling and all of this. We give them all of the media so that they can use that to promote this product and tell the story. And so we white label everything, so we're just like the ninjas in the background.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, so what led you in your career and your life to kind of come up with this idea?
So I studied public health in grad school, and just after that, I went to Uganda for a summer job. I was coordinating U.S. interns, college students, to do internships in a small community there, and a lot of what we were doing was focused on health. And I remember we were teaching a class on sanitation and hand washing in this small community, and I realized that as we're teaching people to use soap to prevent disease, realized that so many of them could not afford soap. So, like, what were we even doing? And realizing that people need jobs, and bright, capable, talented people, but with that lack of a market, it's very difficult to sustain. So artists and craft is actually the second largest industry employing people in the developing world, second only to agriculture, and it's the number one employer of women in the developing world. And so we're talking about hundreds of millions of people who are in this craft. And yet, very often they're either exploited by middlemen that are not paying them fair pay, and all the value add goes to the exporter, or just simply do not have a market connection, or are dependent on tourist seasons. And so when tourists aren't there, then they go back to planting their crops. And so it's a sector that can use this bridge, but they already have incredible skill. Very often it's indigenous craft that's been passed down from parents to children. And so we're just able to take that and sometimes work on the design to be able to work with a Western market. For example, like perhaps a woven bag that's used for carrying rice. We can say, hey, if we tweak it a little bit, it can be a laptop case.
Sure.
And so we kind of provide that bridge. So started in 2009, started while I was in Uganda, started a nonprofit there working with women to make jewelry. These earrings are actually made by them.
Cool.
And we were just a marketplace and just a typical nonprofit struggling for several years to try to make ends meet. And it took several years of doing that and seeing the model not working. That we started seeing companies reach out and say, hey, we have this event and we want 300 necklaces. And so we started seeing that just naturally. And so over the years have fully turned the focus onto what do companies need, how can we create products that make sense for them and be able to tap into their markets.
Yeah, this is all very interesting and cool. And it's hard enough to start a business, whether it's a software company or a sandwich shop, locally, where you can see your customers and drive around. You've got Uganda and Guatemala and a lot of others, right? How does that work as far as the business model? Are you guys constantly overseas? How do you connect the vendors, assure that the supply chain is good, and then obviously you still need to find the buyers, right? How does that all work?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, I think it's like a duck, like on the surface it looks calm, and underneath there's just a flurry of activity. Like getting things from countries without well-established trade routes is incredibly difficult, and then times that by 100 during COVID.
Yeah.
And then when you're essentially fronting the cost of labor and materials, your cash conversion cycle becomes a bit tricky. So we were, trying to get stuff air freighted out of Uganda, out of Palestine, and a number of other simultaneous orders last year. I mean, very weeks away from going out of business for several months during COVID.
Sure.
But I guess to the point of what we're doing to actively recruit new vendors, we've got a team on that. We have a fantastic creative director, Annie, who is always always looking for new vendors to bring on, and then once we established their catalog, we've maybe sent a local photographer over to get new shots. We've put them on our platform. Then we go out and look for clients that we can pitch those materials on. Was the other piece logistics?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And currency. I mean, I could keep.
Oh yeah. No. It's fascinating. I mean, we hired a logistics provider and a customs broker, and it was just trying to keep a straight face and not reveal how little we knew about international logistics or about any of the standard things, because I mean, it was our first year of business. Like we knew that there were tariffs that had to be paid. We knew roughly how long something should take, but then we didn't realize how many different sets of hands would. So for example, we had a shipment that was stuck in the port of Long Beach, and then we got flagged for X-ray. So like they have to X-ray the container and make sure there's no contraband in there. That was something that it makes sense. Like it makes sense that they would have that, but we didn't anticipate that happening into our business in the first year. So it was just a really cool learning experience. You learned about and kind of got an appreciation for, the U.S. Postal Service, FedEx, UPS, DHL, all of these vendors who just kept the world running last year.
Yeah. It's not for the faint of heart.
No.
Wouldn't want any part of it. Because for better or worse, you probably have some bribery and some shadiness on all ends, right? Let alone just the normal tariffs and X-rays and things like that.
Yeah.
I can imagine that they might go missing every once in a while, right? Did those types of things ever creep in, or have you figured out the logistics well enough to where it's dependable?
I think the broader question there would just be quality control.
Quality control.
And so when you're not working with a manufacturer, you're working in handmade. You're working with a newly distributed workforce because of the pandemic. That was where more of our aches and pains came in. Maybe like talk about with the Navajo reservation order. That just turned into a goat rodeo trying to figure out how to get everything from point A to point B, and it was incredibly frustrating because a lot of our inventory was in southern Utah and northern Arizona, but we were working with mandatory 72-hour lockdowns on the reservation, and so everything was being made in individual homes instead of in a shop.
Sure.
And so things like getting people just the most basic material, beads, string, clasps, just became a very arduous task.
Mm-hmm. So when the pandemic hit, we were at that point only had groups abroad, and we're like, we don't know what's going to happen with shipping, and we could even, I mean, in addition to the logistics that were wild, the cost that just like it was so sad.
Yeah.
As we had priced the cost of shipping into our products, and then it would go up 10x, and we'd have to eat that. So it was just like flushing money down the toilet. It was so enjoyable.
Yeah.
But when that hit, we thought, okay, there are groups here that are kind of fit our demographic of indigenous handmade.
Yeah.
So we worked and we kind of helped these groups get started, and that had all sorts of opportunities and challenges. But so we worked with a group of Navajo women, and then we worked with a group of women from Afghanistan that are refugees in Salt Lake City. And also, as he's talking about like quality control, that would be fine when everybody's together.
Yeah.
But we put, how many miles did you put on your Sprinter van?
So the Sprinter van that I was living in when me and Melissa met became a delivery vehicle. So I think I put 2,000 miles on that in 2 weeks, just driving back and forth between houses in Kearns, West Valley, Murray.
Holy cow.
Getting all of the different inventory and raw materials to the group of Afghan women who were making these
And doing them in their homes.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And so and often they didn't have transportation, so we were just picking up, dropping off, and it It was goat rodeo. Was
Yeah. I mean, I think like once you make a commitment to your customers though, you know, like we can figure it out. You know,
Yeah.
we can max out our credit cards. We can, you know, phone a friend. We had a lot of people who came up pretty clutch for us to get us through that first year. And it was kind of this conviction that the idea is still good. 2020 is terrible for so many reasons, but if we stick with this, eventually we'll hit some type of escape velocity. Like it's like these aren't realistic margins to forecast. Like shipping will eventually get better, and we can also negotiate our contracts in 2021 in such a way that we kind of share some of the risk with our clients. And so, looking back, I'm really glad we started the business in 2020 instead of, you know, a blue sky year.
Yeah.
Like we got really good at being lean, at being scrappy. We had all of our big fights as an executive team in one year. We didn't realize how bad it was until some of our staff told us that they were on the brink of quitting, and it was such a relief that it's like we made it through, but we barely made it through.
Right.
And I think our business is stronger now because we started in those lean times.
Absolutely. Definitely a silver lining there, and you've
Yeah.
earned it. And it'll probably be easier going forward.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Like I'm not stoked on this Delta variant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or a tsunami. Or,
Yeah.
Holy cow. Yeah.
Mhm.
Quite the struggle even here locally.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit more, Melissa, about some of the products.
So we have a variety of products. We have around 100 products that are on or will be on our website in the next couple of weeks, coming from 11 countries we have on our platform. Our goal is to have 50 artisan groups by the end of the year. And again, that's kind of our unique model, is that we want to be this platform of connection point. And probably half of our artisans have some kind of online presence. And very often they have some connection to maybe a person that's met them and is working with them that lives in the U.S. or Europe. But the other half do not have a web presence. And so, or if they do, it may not be in English, or have, they may not have access to photographers to really show off their products.
Yeah.
And so that's a big thing that we do. We get all the samples here and do beautiful photography that we share with them and say, you can use these for your purposes, like however you want.
Yeah.
We always encourage them that we're not your only customer. Like, you get as many customers as possible. There's enough to go around.
Yeah.
There's no exclusive deals here. And so we do everything from handmade clay jewelry, made from clay that's mined in the mountain near a workshop in Uganda. We have olive wood items made in Bethlehem.
Oh, wow.
And that's been a really cool group to work with. That we went to Palestine to visit that group just as like the world was shutting down. So we went there on a full flight, end of February 2020, came back on an empty flight.
Jeez.
And barely made it back in. So we have woven baskets made by women in Rwanda, leather products, so wallets, laptop cases, backpacks, made by artisans in Guatemala, and on and on.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah. One point to maybe add on this is one of the things that we're proud of as a company. Well, backtracking just a little bit. Anytime you have a marketplace startup, one of the questions you would ask as an investor is where's the disintermediation risk? Like, what's to stop someone from, just going directly to that vendor?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer with our platform is nothing. Like, you can look up who our vendors are. We proudly display it. Like, we try not to. I mean, we are the market access point for them. And if you need to go directly to them, you're more than welcome to. We believe that we stand by our level of service and our level of quality control and coordination around that. But one of our frustrations with the market as it existed before the Ethic Collective was that there were just a lot of middlemen who were extractive and not really value added. And so we we kind of hold ourselves accountable by showing our hand there to make sure that we go above and beyond just buying something for $1 and selling it for $2 elsewhere.
Yeah.
And we've had people say that are kind of in this space, I can't believe that you're displaying the artisan group's name and their location. People go, do you worry about people going around you? And we're like, no. I mean, great. Like more work for them is fulfilling our mission. And we just know that what we do on the logistics side to make this a seamless experience for customers is value. So if they want that experience, we work together and make it really easy to connect to a market that's typically challenging to connect with. And we've kind of, we're working in an industry that's very inefficient. Like that's what handmade is, and that's why we love it. So we work to make everything else efficient aside from the handmade process.
Yeah.
And so the international logistics, the design process, the storytelling, all of that just comes with the product. And that's what we like to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you think about like, a lot of the software companies in Utah, it's software as a service. Like we're essentially story as a service or corporate social responsibility as a service. Like those teams are really hard to stand up, and it can take years before you ship product. But if your company has an ethical mission that you're focused on, we can get that up and running in 3 to 6 months versus a couple years. Or if you have, you're an organization that runs a foundation, this is a way that you can spend money on products that you would otherwise purchase that go towards some of the similar goals, whether that's, female entrepreneurship, anti-human trafficking, economic, or just general economic development.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys have thought through it, and a lot of interesting stories. All right, as we mentioned at the top of the show, you guys are married.
Yeah.
And that's always fun to see how the division of duties work. So for you guys, what are the basics? Do you talk about the business 24/7? Does it stop at 7 p.m.? How do you ultimately determine who's right? How shouty does it get? How does it work?
Well, if it was up to me, we would talk about it 24/7.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I functioned before. And like I got married at 36. Like I was living the single life and doing entrepreneurship for, a decade, and I had no work boundaries. And so so that's been something that we've like learned. And it's been, I'm in a healthier place than I've ever been because that's something that like to make our marriage healthy, we have to take a break from work and we have to like shut it off. Yeah. How am I doing?
You're doing great. I think like, I mean, you have to have, I would say first and foremost, it's sort of predicated on trust. And so there are aspects of the business when it comes to design, when it comes to the ethical decisions of the business, when it comes to customer interaction, that I just trust Melissa 100%. Like I don't feel a need to ever weigh in on those decisions. I don't feel like I've been, stepped around. Like there's a lot of trust there. The things I do have opinions about, I'm happy to weigh in. I'm also a little bit of an introvert in that I need unstructured time to really like chew on stuff. There's a time when like a discussion for me is productive, but more often than not, they kind of wear me down. And so if I feel like I'm constantly responding to something, whether it's on Slack or email or, we're just having a conversation, kind of like the old, back when we were all in offices, like someone would drop by your desk and have that, it would kind of distract me. But I think about it a lot. Like, so for example, like, we've got a company offsite this week. We went mountain biking this morning, and the whole way down the mountain, I was thinking about case studies for our team to read. But it's just kind of a program that runs in the background. And like, I feel like if I start the day by asking myself a question, I'll let that run for a little while. But we work the way we work is just a little bit different, and we've had to figure out a balance for that. But Melissa's helped me a lot with just helping me realize. I think I maybe had too. I thought entrepreneurship was easier than it is, and I think Melissa's helped me get my work ethic back.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
pulled him out of retirement of
Yeah.
living a van life.
Yeah. No, for real. For real. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you worked a lot the last year and a half.
Yeah.
And congrats
Oh,
on
thanks.
being able to communicate effectively and still have fun. Because I've just got to know you over the last half hour, but you guys clearly have fun and do good work. So on the biz dev side, how do you kind of decide new products or new regions, new countries, new partners? How does that work?
One of our employees that Devin mentioned, Annie, she's constantly reaching out to artisan groups, or like looking for new products to bring into our line. But then we have we have a head of impact, Jenna, that she is working on, and right now we're piloting a vetting tool for artisan groups because we want to be able to say with 100% assurance to our customers that this does not involve any child labor, that people are fair paid, that they're in a safe working environment. And it's interesting because the fair trade certification industry, fair trade chocolate, fair trade coffee, like those have become household ideas. We know about fair trade. But the fair trade certification is mainly meant for farms and for factories. And whereas we're working in this kind of different sector of handmade where people are a lot of times working from home, and then they will bring it to a collective, there's just not a lot of regulation there. And so we're developing actually a tool to be able to vet artisan groups and how we do this. And there's one tool out there that's pretty expensive and very time consuming. And for a lot of the groups that are quite small, the barrier is way too high for them to get any kind of certification. And so we're developing something that they can do like a stepped approach that might take several years, but we can give them orders as they're working on. So first they're doing reporting of their supply chain, how they are sourcing their products from like how they're sourcing their wood. Is it causing deforestation?
Yeah.
Are they working within regulations? That way, what kind of materials are going into their products? Chemicals and all of that, and are they on the safe list and all that? So they're reporting all that. They're reporting on how they ensure that there's no child labor. What happens if people bring their kids to work? Is there a safe place for the kids to go? All of that. And then, so first it's reporting, and then we are helping them to create policies within their organization. And then lastly, trainings so that they can pass that on to their staff and like really create a culture of like truly a fair and equitable place to work. And so yeah, that's how we're working on. There are endless numbers of artisan groups, and we would love to have all of them be showcased on our website and be able to put them on the global stage by getting them through this process so that they can show off what they're doing. But again, we want to ensure and be able to fully, with confidence, tell our customers that these are made fairly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So even a few more layers of kind of complexity, but to do it right, it sounds like that's really important to you
Yeah.
Yeah.
right out of the gate.
Yeah, no, and we've spent a lot of time and resources on that in the last year. I think my background is I worked as an economist for a while, and I think whenever you're looking at a development economic situation, your baseline is do no harm. Like we don't want to, widen income distributions in some of the countries we're working with. We don't want to, raise inequality, any of those types of things. So we've actually worked with a team out of UT Austin and Emory to do impact evaluations, which that's a whole separate conversation. But what we wanted to do is to do longitudinal analysis on the women who have been working on our projects in Uganda to see if they're actually improving household income and kind of like moving into like a middle class over there.
Yeah.
And that's the early results have been incredibly encouraging.
We actually threw a randomized controlled trial. So, what's typically used in science, we're using in a social setting. So we had a group of 300 women. Half were given a contract of making handmade items, and half were not. And we did a baseline survey before they got that. And it was like a phone call from a Ugandan surveyor that had nothing to do with us, telling them, hey, we'll send you 1,000 shillings of mobile money if you'll just answer a few questions for us, and asking them about their economic status. And then in 6 months, we did a follow-up. And what we're able to see is those that had consistent work for those 6 months were making 3x what they typically were making in their daily labors. But additionally, the things that were really important is that they were investing in items that reflect long-term wealth-building assets. So we were seeing people buy cows. We saw stoves, refrigerators. So these are things that are markers of actual real steps out of poverty. So
Yeah.
we're working on some more evaluations, but that's really fun to see that. That's what we care about.
It's a little nerdy, and it doesn't really lend itself to a PR blitz. But it's something that we want to hold ourselves to. It's interesting for us, and we think it's important that we follow up on these things.
Yeah. And you guys will know this a lot more than I, but I've been privy to a few pretty good debates on social impact investing. And obviously won't mention names, but one of the fellows was like fairly candid and like, all right, well, if you do this, they're going to buy a stove and that's going to cut down a tree. Like they were both highly intelligent and they were thinking through things.
Yeah.
And one, was taking a pretty dark approach to it, and the other one was like, no, it's all good. And then, there's the trump card of, well, if, these women are economically sound on their own, they'll have less kids. And then for the guy that was worried that we'd have to go colonize Mars, like, well, there would be less kids. It's all interesting when you factor in all of that stuff, but it takes quite a while to pick up on the nuances. And
oh yeah, I mean, like social, like that's the reason like social sciences isn't studied the way that physics or chemistry is. Like what you observe, you change.
Yeah.
Like the things that are going to work in economic development in 10 or 20 years from now might be drastically different.
Yeah.
We don't like really hang our hat on the social impact side. I mean, I think the empirical reality in 2021 is that if your company doesn't have a mission to at least somehow try and make the world better, you're going to have huge issues with recruiting top talent. You're going to have real problems with messaging towards your customers. I think it's essentially a table stakes platform right now, and then it's going to be a contest to see who can execute on it the best in the next 5-10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I was reading a book on Coke and like the founding story of Coke all the way, and I had to quit because they were getting into chapters where, they were just taking all the water and, I can't. This was 50s, 60s, 70s. And you've seen it play out so many times over the course of humankind. So it's good that there's a conscience with a lot of people and that they actually have the ability to push back and moderate things where applicable.
And consumers can vote with their feet. Yeah. Like they have the option of choosing brands that they match with the ethos of the company. Yeah, like absolutely. I do that in my personal consumption. I know most of my friends do.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah.
All right, so you've made it through I kind of figured that it was a rough year. And now after talking to you, it's way worse than I would have suspected. So congrats again.
Oh, thanks.
So what has you two most excited for the future of the company, maybe over the next 12 to 18 months? What really gets you excited?
One aspect that we're building out is custom gift boxes. And we did this for a customer last year, and they went wild over it, and they loved it. So this was a company that does investment for women specifically. And so their high wealth clients, they were doing gifting for. And so we created a box that had a cashmere blanket made by women in Nepal, coffee harvested by women in Guatemala, and a basket woven by women in Rwanda. And so then we had a card that showed the picture of each of the women and about the products, and then it was their it was their holiday card, so it was all branded for them, and there was like branding on the blanket, with a tag with their company's name on it. So we're building out a way for people to, on our website, be able to build out a custom gift box. And that's something that we're really going to be pushing the next couple of months, is allowing companies to just, like, they're already gifting, and they can just choose a cooler gift.
Yeah.
Rather than something that people probably have a lot of. They can choose something that's interesting, meaningful, impactful. So that's a fun project that we're working on in the next like 3 months, as we look towards holiday gifting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's better than a Chili's gift card.
Let's hope so. I mean, what I'm excited about is, I started my career at Qualtrics, and I think, like, when you think about the iconic case studies that are going to be written, I think like Qualtrics developed the best inside B2B sales team in the world. Like, there isn't really anything that can compare to it. After Qualtrics, I was at Dropbox and a couple other startups, and watching how different folks have done biz dev, inside sales, B2B sales especially. I'm excited about that. Like, I think, like, we have the long tail of the business, which is, like, go like what Melissa's talking about, like the ability to go in and do self-serve. And then we also just want to go chase whales, like companies that are doing large gifting, wholesalers, all of that. We recently made a couple key hires in that area. And then we have an amazing head of customer success, Rachel, who's done a lot of work building out the infrastructure so that we can start onboarding clients faster. And so I'm just really stoked to start smiling and dialing again and get after it. Like, I think, like, we have good fundamentals on the business, and now it's just time to pour the gas on.
Very cool. It's always good to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so if there's folks out there that might want to work with you or become a partner or vendor, what's the best way to get in contact?
You can hop on our website. Ethic is ETHIK, ethiccollective.com, and reach out to us. And at this point, the website, you can see products. You can't check out. And that's because we're, with the varying levels of customization that we do and all of this, we're working to build those out on the website. But at this point, we can do, like, just really a concierge experience where we can kind of show our products and figure out, like, what really, even a cause that really jives with your company. So, for example, there's companies that really care about human trafficking, and right now we have 3 groups, one in East Asia, one in Nepal, one in Mexico, that are all employing women that have come out of sex trafficking, and provide skills training and just a pathway out of that. And so that's something that, like, can really align if that's what the company cares about. And so, yeah, we'd love to, like, hop on a call and see what people care about, what products are going to resonate with their people, and create something. The sky's the limit with what we could create, because handmade can be made into anything. And these are really talented artisans that can make beautiful creations with just concepts that we send over. So, yeah, that's how that can work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, awesome. Well, this is inspiring and really cool idea, and great. Ideas are easy, execution's hard. So you guys are really impressive, and thank you so much for taking the time to join.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
This has been fun.
Cool.
Thanks so much.